Tim Westwood was shot by motorcycle gunmen as he drove in his Range Rover in South London.
The rap and hip-hop DJ was returning from the Lambeth Country show with his four-man crew when the drive-by hitmen struck at traffic lights on the busy Kennington Park Road.
The DJ's Jeep was targeted by two men on a motorbike in Kennington, while he and five colleagues were returning from playing a gig in Brixton.
Born the son of a bishop in East Anglia, I know that Tim Westwood sounds a lot more Alan Partridge than gangland drive-by shootings. But before the bullets start flying, I personally think it would be best to take a refresher course in the illustrious career of the big dog himself. Tim left school at 16 and got the bug for the nightclub scene after working as a glass collector around 1980, a position which he explained with gusto in the past.
What glass collector is like, I mean, if you're in a party and, you know, you're drinking, you're getting your drink on, you put your glasses down, there's like some kid on, like, you know, no money at all collecting those glasses and washing them and putting them back behind the bars.
Got it, glass collector, so you collect glasses. Not to be confused with an arse collector, a vase collector, or a brass collector. Anyway, after completing his collection of glasses, he found himself working as a warm-up act for the DJ David Rodigan, eventually finessing the opportunity to have his very own set on the wheels of steel if he could pack out the club with bodies. And after filling the venue with 50 of his mates, his career was off to a blazing start.
But with the club, they said if I could get like 50 people in the spot on a Friday night, they'd let me get on the set. And being from this area here, I brought the whole of Ladbroke Grove down, packed out the club, they let me get on the set, ripped it down, and that was really the start of the whole career.
Now, Tim Westwood does have a bad habit of lying about his age, and I am going to reveal just how old he is at the end of the video. But have a guess, how old do you think that Tim Westwood is? I'll give you a clue. Apparently the first record he played was the song Rapper's Delight, a track that was released in 1979. I said a hip, hop, the hibbit, that one. But it's important to remember that after getting his first DJ slot and spinning Rapper's Delight to his own delight, his career wasn't immediately the glitz and glamour that the big dog has come to expect today. No, for years, Tim Westwood was truly on the grind, earning a humble £15 a night.
And that started me as DJ. I used to earn £15 a night. I used to have my records in cardboard boxes. I used to be on the night bus.
And to be fair, it sounded like he spent all of that money on hookers anyway.
You know, a lot of like prostitutes, hoes and that, so all the pimps were down there. And just growing up in that environment, it was like, yo, this is just this whole different world. It was just like the most fun I've ever had in my life.
Guess he was a brass collector after all. But once he was on the decks, Tim Westwood got several opportunities to get on the radio, specifically several newly founded London-based pirate radio stations such as LWR around 1983.
And LWR managed to get the technology on how to build a transmitter, and that was the first like street-owned, street-run station.
And it was at LWR that Tim Westwood truly begun to find his voice, by which I mean he literally had yet to find that annoying voice of his.
LWR 92.5 FM, it's 11 minutes past 10 on a Wednesday night. This is the Hip Hop Show.
I mean, it's incredibly hard to imagine that that straight-speaking, radio-friendly voice would eventually evolve into the big dog pitbull that we know Westwood as today. Following his time at LWR, Tim Westwood famously had a slot on Kiss FM, back in its early days where he was actually a co-founder at a time when it was still just a humble pirate operation.
Kiss FM with me, Tim Westwood, rock shocking that goddamn funky beats.
Eventually, Westwood graduated to London's Capital Radio, spinning slots on Friday and Saturday evenings, where he'd play hip-hop bangers and drop bombs for 7 years straight. But the big break for the big dog pitbull truly came when he landed his slot running the new national BBC Radio 1 rap show around 94 and 95. This was a role that was granted by the newly implemented chief executive of Radio 1, Matthew Bannister, and Andy Parfitt. These two gave him that position that gave his career the true launchpad that it needed. And it seems like he's been eternally grateful for that opportunity to this day.
Really want to thank Matthew Bannister, Andy Parfitt. Shout out to Radio 1, Andy Parfitt.
And Tim launched the Radio 1 rap show with a humongous bang. This came in the form of an inaugural concert where he brought Puffy and the notorious B.I.G. over to the UK for a legendary London show.
It's Ladbroke Grove in the house tonight. It's North London in the house tonight. South London in the house tonight.
Keep it real.
South London in the house tonight.
Keep it real.
South London in the house tonight.
It's funny because Tim Westwood actually says that in his early days of bringing people like Puffy and Biggie to the BBC, apparently the vibes of his BBC studio being filled with bottles of Cristal and blunt smoke didn't sit well with the corporate higher-ups.
Oh, hi Tim.
What's all the brown stuff on the table?
Those are blunt guts, baby.
Right.
Some people in the BBC said that they weren't quite comfortable with what they thought were thugs being in the building. Oh, come on, what proof do you have that Biggie's crew are a bunch of thugs? Yeah, sure, I mean, they call themselves the Notorious Thugs, but come on. But to his credit, Matthew Bannister always stuck up for Tim Westwood. And apparently from his very first meeting with Matthew Bannister, Tim Westwood had made it very clear that he wasn't interested in taking the slot if they didn't have respect for the culture and for the genre of music that he was trying to bring to the forefront of England. Well, the BBC exec showed Tim that respect and he showed it back by dominating the Radio 1 rap slots for around 20 years until he left and went back to Capitol. But don't get it twisted. You might hear the funny voice and the catchphrases and be tempted to think that Tim Westwood is nothing more than a white British culture vulture a la Trap Lord Boss. But mark my words, Tim Westwood is certified in the culture. He's been embedded in the rap game longer than most people think. He was popping before Apple Music, he was popping before YouTube. Shit, Tim Westwood was shelling it down with your favourite rapper before LimeWire was even invented. Oh, back in the days when you'd hit play on what you thought was 50 Cent in the club and then hear you! In fact, Tim Westwood has been around for so many iconic moments in hip-hop history. I'm genuinely convinced that he is a goddamn time traveler. Come with us now on a journey through time and space to the world of the mighty Tim Westwood. Exactly. Beginning in 2019, before all these basic bitches were screaming, Westwood was thugging with your boy Roddy Ricch. For some reason, dressed here as a blind banana.
Roddy Ricch in the building.
Yeah.
Fam, I appreciate it. What a time to be alive, man, in the UK.
No, facts. I like it out here. It's cool.
Oh, man.
We've been thugging out here.
Thugging?
Yeah.
And I know after he died, all of you wanted to pretend like you were fucking with Juice WRLD back in 2018. But the big dog, Tim Westwood, actually was. Showing off his incredible patience sitting through a goddamn hour-long freestyle by Juice WRLD. Juice WRLD, more like Dry Throat World. Damn! Now we're going all the way back to 2017. Question: if Tim Westwood invites you to his basement, are you gonna back your session? Well, long before Drake was riding the Lowski hype train, and everyone except for him was saying free the Spartans, the Harlem Spartans from Kennington were shelling it down in Tim Westwood's lower floor, in a scene that looks like the most intimidating youth club on the planet. In 2015, the big dog was not only hanging out with Young Thug, but also offering some unsolicited but handy human resources advice for his label 300 Entertainment.
Tim Westwood TV, Young Thug, baby, in the UK. Motherfucking what? Motherfucking what in the UK? Did you ever think that? We are getting turned. Where's your man from the record label whose sole job is to bill spliff?
In fact, I hear that with Tim Westwood's help, that blunt roller was able to secure a banging pension. That's some responsible workplace ethics right there. We're going all the way back to 2010 and here's a young tiger all up on Tim's show for a freestyle. Don't get it twisted, this was before Taste, can I get a taste? This was before Rack City Bitch, Rack City Bitch. In fact, this was before Tiger had even had that questionable relationship with Kylie Jenner. Hang on a minute, how old was Kylie Jenner when this thing was recorded? Damn, this guy really does need a time machine. Also in 2010 was one of Tim Westwood's legendary trips to the A-Town. I'm talking Atlanta, not Aberystwyth. And unfortunately, whilst stateside, he was involved in another broad day booting.
I've been booted in the back. I've been clamped. Booted in the back, in the A. Pause.
And this is only one of Tim Westwood's many time-travelling escapades in the A, where he's known to frequent the local strip clubs and waffle houses.
It's Westwood TV, Channel U, we're up in Atlanta. Now, right now, we're outside Strokers. That's the hottest strip club in the ATL.
Back in 2009, all the UK grime heads are bound to know every word to Temps, aka Temper T's CD rack invading anthem, Next Hype. But what you might have forgotten was that Tim Westwood was there. Once again on his human resources tip, admonishing Temper T for not dishing out enough pars.
Your par game is weak, brother. I am so disappointed in your pars.
But let's go back to 2007, way before Zane Lowe's little baldy peanut head was nodding along to Kanye West's insane rants. Westwood was there with your boy Kanye, musing on the size of Pamela Anderson's legendary cans.
Pam was on the set and stuff like that.
Please. And she's got big titties.
Yeah.
But hell, that wasn't the earliest example. Tim Westwood was rolling with Kanye West even back in 2004. Back when Dame Dash's little baldy cashew nut head was still on the scene. By God, knowing what I know about Dame Dash now, I'm surprised that he wasn't screaming in Westwood's face calling him a culture vulture. But then again, I assume that he needed something from Westwood at the time. 2005, Tim was getting his ex to the Xeon hosting the UK edition of Pimp My Ride.
Westwood's got a pimp a ride, UK style.
A position that in hindsight he should have used to pimp his own ride to be bulletproof. 2003, he's driving around with Jim Jones, Cameron, Joel Santana and the Diplomats, smoking an uncomfortable amount of blunts in his imported American whip. Damn baby, I'd hate to see how his insurance premium went up after that video. went out. 2001, he's doing an insane 30-minute backstage freestyle with the whole of D12 and Eminem. It's gotta suck looking back and seeing that the guy in the group with the worst drug habits still ended up being the most successful and healthy. And let's also not forget that Tim Westwood was one of the earliest supporters of Jay-Z.
I just remember the ones that was truly there and that truly supported me. And you know, you were one of those people.
Repping the J-Way before he became an elevator punching bag back in '96, in a time when he hadn't even released Reasonable Doubt yet, imagine.
So like you're working towards your album, you're gonna drop that next after this hit, it's just taking over the whole world?
Yeah, the album is done, it's just waiting in the cut. We got Biggie Smalls on there, of course Fox Brown, my man Jazz, y'all might remember Big Jazz. Oh man, Sauce Money, and this young cat coming off Memphis Bleak.
And if that wasn't enough, let's go back to 1995 when he's got Biggie Smalls all up in the studio making freestyles and cracking jokes at his expense.
Tim, I heard you got a little freestyle skills. What's the deal with that? Tim Westwood,
No, man. No.
But oh, that's not enough proof that Tim Westwood's a time traveller. Fine, let's go back to 1989, before he was even on Radio 1, when he had Will Smythe, the Fresh Prince of Bad Accents, all up in the cut freestyling on his show, who even way back then was able to describe his own whack, stinky rhymes with an exceptional metaphor.
It's canned fart spray.
Boy. But great Scott, Marty, we're taking it all the way back to '88, when Tim Westwood was bringing out Run DMC before you basic bitches even know what Adidas shoes were. Okay, I know. Traplaw Ross, this shit is becoming clickbait. All the jokes are all well and good, you did a little time travel sequence, where is the shooting? Well, we're gonna get into the shooting, but there's one more thing we need to discuss before we get to it. Bear with me. Because it's very easy for an ill-informed American audience to write Tim Westwood off as nothing more than the poor man's Funk Flex, or the old man's Traplaw Ross. And look, I know a lot of people give Tim Westwood shit for, how can I put this delicately, talking black, but he's always brushed off these accusations saying he's just talking how a hip-hop DJ would talk. He's always been adamant that he's never lied about where he came from, and I honestly find his viewpoint kind of inspiring.
I'm a friggin' hip-hop DJ. How am I meant to talk?
I agree.
Like, how am I meant to rip down a club?
And sure, Ali G's character may have literally been inspired by Tim Westwood's own disposition, but Tim Westwood isn't a British white pretender appropriating hip-hop culture. Tim Westwood is hip-hop culture in the UK. So like him or love him, he was the one that brought it here. He was the one that fought for it, he became the face of it, and he spent 35 years of his life promoting this cherished culture that we all love. And for that reason, he deserves your goddamn respect. Drop one of Tim Westwood's bombs for that. Because when all these poppin' rappers' careers are dead and gone, in 100 years' time, Tim Westwood is still going to be a head in a jar, spinning futuristic plasma vinyls and dropping the digital sonic bomb on crowds of daggering cyborgs at the dystopian wasteland space raids that I know he'll be throwing. So, before you call Tim Westwood a culture vulture, just remember that he was hanging around with Big and Puffy when you were still hanging around in your dad's big puffy nutsack. But as Uncle Ben from those delicious rice packs once put it, with great power comes great responsibility. And so in 1999, like a clout-chasing Icarus, Tim Westwood got a little too close to the gangster lifestyle he was adjacent to and ended up taking a bullet for the culture. On the day in question, Westwood had been performing at the Lambeth Country Show in Brockwell Park. I know when I say Lambeth Country Festival, you're thinking this, but Tim Westwood was playing, so it's probably a bit more like this. And apparently an altercation had gone down at the event that Westwood had tried to calm down.
We know there was some trouble at the concert, which Westwood has reported to have tried to calm down. Police are not saying whether they believe it was related.
Some had speculated that he'd actually been followed from the venue after this altercation.
Police believe he may have been followed here because not long before he'd been performing to a large audience in nearby Brockwell Park.
And apparently Kennington, where it started, specifically Kennington Park Road, as two men in multicoloured crash helmets pulled up alongside Tim Westwood's Range Rover on a motorbike and pinged it with vision. They fired what was thought to be a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, and slapping that corn at the car, hitting Tim Westwood in his right arm, the bullet passing straight through him. And another bullet went through his seat only inches from his spine, which would have surely left him paralysed. Which is very lucky, otherwise the only day parties he'd be shelling down are ones with wheelchair access. But less lucky was Tim's assistant, who caught a leg shot in what Tim described himself as having his kneecap blown off.
Because it took me a year to learn how to walk again, bro. I was just at home, just could not walk. When we was in the hospital together, I was literally lying. Like, I'm not ashamed to say, like, there's times where I woke up having nightmares and Westwood would like say, it's all right. Yeah, literally, I'm not ashamed to say it because it happened.
Hey, sometimes you lose a kneecap, but you gain a supportive friend. 4 other passengers in the car were members of Tim's Justice production company, and they sustained minor injuries by flying glass. But then again, when you work for a production company whose logo is an Uzi, what are you expecting to get injured by? Flying crumpets? After the shooting, Tim Westwood was held under strict police guard in hospital. But then again, what do you expect? I mean, he did arrive with a crate full of bombs and bangers. Tim later discussed this incident in a legendary interview with fellow pale but legendary rap game misfit DJ Vlad. And interestingly, Westwood sounded like he knew why this happened, suggesting that he'd actually had a pass in South London, which was revoked after the guy that he'd got checked in with was killed.
I'd sorted out my situations and I was good, but then it wasn't good because the guy I was calm with got killed.
Okay.
And I still thought it was calm because I was good with him. We were good. I made a misjudgment.
But he made clear in the interview that he wasn't snitching then, and he wasn't snitching now.
You knew who did it, but you didn't cooperate with the police.
No.
Now, not long after this incident, detectives involved in the case pointed out that around 13 London killings in the first 6 months of 1999 were linked to Yardie gangs. The police said that a turf war was raging between rival gangs in the area, and several similar shootings had happened very recently.
But police will also be checking the facts of this attack against a spate of recent shootings in London, many associated with the Yardie gangs from Jamaica. A host of motives are involved in more than 30 shootings this year, from drugs-related violence to minor arguments settled with guns.
Apparently at the time, the South London Yardies were warring over London's lucrative drug markets. You know, back in a time when you could make an honest, good living selling drugs in this city. Not like now, where the market's so goddamn saturated that you have to run about 5 county lines to even make minimum wage. And another interesting lead was that only a week before this shooting, a very similar incident had taken place. In nearby Brixton, reportedly also 2 men on a motorcycle shooting in public.
That another shooting in nearby Brixton just a week ago also took place when 2 people arrived at a basketball court on a motorcycle. Again, they fired at somebody who was injured, thankfully not fatally, and again made off on a motorbike. So there's an obvious similarity there.
Now, the supposed Yardie gang that were responsible for this wave of crime at the time had been described from a criminal sect originating from Jamaica and spreading into the inner cities of London around this time, with the police making a suggestion that potentially gang-related murders in Jamaica were spilling into the UK streets due to large-scale immigration as people were trying to escape the crime in the homeland and coming to the UK. And apparently this had only come months after the gang wars in Jamaica had gotten so bad, the government had sent in army troops to try and put a stop to the bloodshed. And even though many people have fled to the UK, they sadly found no respite as gang wars continued to rage on the streets of London. And apparently this specific gang war had erupted around March the 6th, when a 36-year-old Jamaican-born man named Mervyn Sills was shot dead in broad daylight on a busy Brixton street in front of around 50 witnesses. From there, related crimes and potential retaliations came in thick and fast. A man named Adrian Roberts was killed in Harlesden, followed by Laverne Forbes and Patrick Smith, who was shot in front of their own 7-year-old daughter in Tottenham. Apparently at the time, the police were growing incredibly frustrated with the difficulties of tracking culprits, many of whom were here without papers. And at the time, the Conservative Home Affairs spokesman even suggested Trumpian travel bans on Jamaican immigrants at the time. But then again, if you watch the last season of Top Boy, it seems like there's plenty of British lads running over to Jamaica causing problems, so we can talk. But anyway, back to Westwood. A few weeks later, 2 men are arrested for this shooting. Now apparently 2 unnamed South London men were reportedly half-brothers with a recently murdered gangster. And it's highly possible that this man was who Westwood was checked in with originally. Westwood even said on his Vlad TV interview that 2 guys were arrested, but because he didn't snitch, they ultimately were let go.
Everyone on the street knew what was up, but they did get arrested.
Oh, they
but
did?
Then got released.
They got released.
Well, nobody was testifying.
You didn't testify, none of the other guys in the car.
However, he didn't let all this drama slow him down. Westwood recovered from the shooting and cracked on, continuing to throw bombs and bangers at parties all over the city. But this wasn't necessarily the end of the Yardie trouble for UK radio DJs in London. Within 2 years of this incident, another Radio 1 DJ was actually shot and killed, following a robbery and altercation which seemed to have further links to the Yardie criminal underworld. And to keep it all the way 100, there's really nothing funny about that. After the shooting, Westwood released a statement through his agent, saying everybody at the hospital has been great and I feel fine. I assume that he also added, "That bullet went in, baby, drop another bomb for the shooter."
Tim Westwood says he's feeling fine and is expected to go home tomorrow. But in some hip-hop circles, the fact of his shooting, thankfully not too serious, may well in the long run give him more credibility than ever.
Funnily enough, many years later, Westwood actually said that shooting got him so much good publicity in the streets that he would pay someone to shoot him again. And I'm sure there's a few haters out there that would pay for that too. However, unfortunately for Westwood, all of that attention wasn't necessarily good. Several years later, gammon-faced twat, alleged pigfucker, and disgraced former Prime Minister David Cameron admonished Tim Westwood in the Radio 1 rap schedule for promoting inner-city violence. But let's not forget that this was the bell end that thought that a Brexit referendum was a good idea, and that we could fix street violence by hugging hoodies. Yeah, good one, Dave. I'd like to see your Moscow march down to Peckham and try and give PS a little cuddle. See how dry your hoodie is after that one. But to their credit, the BBC apparently supported him, as he outlined in another iconic Vlad interview.
The Prime Minister, David Cameron, even called me out once in Parliament, saying that the music I'm playing is promoting.
Yeah.
Like promoting
gun
gangs
and knife violence.
and violence, yeah.
Well, because
and that's why my radio station was so amazing for defending me. You know, we used to play sound effects. They said you can keep the bomb, but lose the gunshot.
Damn it, Vlad, how do you always have all the fire interviews? You're another time traveler, I swear. No time for that montage, unfortunately. Regardless of the backlash, the public hate never seemed to get Tim Westwood down. He used that negative exposure to keep cashing in and running the game as the big dog he is. His compilation album business was and is booming. He released over 14 albums and sold over 5 million copies. And at the time of its release, his Platinum Edition compilation album was the top-selling British urban album of all time. And he eventually passed the torch of obnoxious British rap head honcho over to what can only be described as slightly overweight Tim Westwood, Charlie Sloth.
That's fire in the booth, my guy! That's fire in the booth, my guy!
But it seemed like Tim Westwood could see the future as well as travel through time, because he could tell what Charlie was up to from the moment he stepped his foot in those BBC offices.
I just think maybe I feel vulnerable that here's this new guy in the station and I better just nip him in the bud and fight him down and crush him and destroy his career.
You don't want to do that to me, man.
Oh, I think I do, actually.
You're meant to try and mentor me.
I'm just trying try to mental you.
No,
I'm just
man,
like,
come on, Tim.
I just think you might be the person who replaces me on a Saturday night.
God, I'm seeing double here. Full Westwoods. But Tim wasn't bitter about handing over the BBC baton to Charlie Sloth. He triumphantly returned to his old haunt, still to this day shelling it down on Capital Extra on Saturday nights, with the most popular party evening set in London. But even more importantly, he is big in the game on YouTube, with his Tim Westwood TV channel sitting comfortable at over 1 million subscribers and just a few clicks shy from an incredible 500 million lifetime views. That shit's all over your boy Traplaw Ross with a piddly 300k subscribers and around 50 million lifetime views. Pathetic! So essentially the exchange rate is around 10 Traplaw Rosses to 1 Tim Westwood. And that sounds about right considering how short I am too. But really, Tim Westwood's numbers to this day are still crazy. Especially considering the fact that his channel had humble beginnings, simply to provide a place where he could interview the rapper Giggs, who was banned from entering any of the BBC studios. However, it's not all been clean sailing for Tim Westwood in recent years. Over the past few, the latest waves of London gang violence and its connections to the UK drill music scene have seen Tim Westwood back in the media crossfire once again. In fact, after the highly publicised deaths of Moscow 17 members Incognito, GB, and Harlem Spartans member SA in 2018, drill music became public enemy #1.
Dip him means stab him. Fishing means to go out looking to stab a rival gang member. There are dance moves and hand gestures. Some mean gang membership, others obvious references to violence. The number 3 here before fellow gang members' names means soon to be freed from prison. The knife, gun and ticking clock emoji, well, they need no explanation.
Westwood was singled out for having featured these murdered drillers, as well as their most devilish op, Zone 2, in his Crib Session freestyle show on his channel. Now, I would usually make some sort of silly joke here, you know, make fun of Zone 2, but if you know anything about the drill beefs going on in London at this time, that is not happening. Sure, I'm happy to make fun of Jay Prince all day when he's all the way in Houston, but Zone 2 are just down the road, so I do not wish to say anything bad publicly about them. They are fucking scary. Apparently, a Times investigation concluded that Tim Westwood is actually profiting off of gang violence in the capital. But then again, I did a 2-second investigation into the Times and I noticed that they were also profiting from gang violence in the city, as well as the deaths of children and national disasters. Ooh, a paywall. I guess I gotta fork over £1 a week if I want to find out whether or not my loved ones will perish from this new plague. Thanks, the Times, you sure have principles. Anyway, Westwood naturally defended himself against these ridiculous claims, saying that the people that appear on the channel aren't gangs, they're musicians, they're not paid, and they bleep and remove specific threats of violence from the freestyles, which is 100% true. And you'd know that if you watched the last OFB Crib Session. And even before this controversy, he had pre-defended himself further in that same interview with Vlad, once again proof that he is a goddamn time traveller.
And I feel like hip-hop in this country is just reflecting situations of people having a hard time.
Yeah.
And it's those hard times which are causing the problems, not the music. And those hard times are, you know, economic disadvantage, housing disadvantage, lack of opportunity, which is killing everything, definitely getting a fight down from the police, and just, you know, the frustration of growing up in this environment.
Look, the fact is, Westwood has been running the game for a good 35 years. He doesn't have any kids or family, he is married to the culture, baby. And people, including me, can make fun of him all they want. But you can't deny that he is a legend in the game and truly one of the most entertaining characters to have ever spawned out of this culture. He did all this for us. He became this ridiculous, hilarious persona for our own pure entertainment and amusement. And my God, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking up to him, planning on doing the same exact goddamn thing. Now Tim Westwood is 60 years old, that's right, 6-0, but he is still relevant as ever. To this day, he is still shutting down the dance floor, DJing poppin' day parties all over the country, and still interviewing anyone and everyone who is popping in the rap game now, whether it's Pop Smoke, Roddy Ricch, or even 6ix9ine. 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 I'm so fucking sick of hearing about 6ix9ine! Fuck this shit! I also want to give a huge shout out to all of my Patreon gang. That's Ainu, Otaku VS, Noah Carter, Candy Cantrell, Jason Ford, Pyromancer, Griffin Fuller, Sean Anderson, Antonio Groza, Javier Gonzalez, Monique Vivret McKay, DJ Fred 100, Fabian Cruz, Johannes Zimmerman, Henry Bryan, Josh Knappin, Niraj Shukla, Galip, Jessica Simmons, Chris J, Dylan Stuber, Tony Doe, Penis Bag McPenisface, yeah, I said it, Wilson Psychedelic, and Nessiah. I appreciate every single one of you, as well as everybody else whose name you can see on the screen right now. And if you want to support this channel and get your name in the credits, head on over to patreon.com/TrapLordRoss. I really appreciate your support. Make sure you follow your boy at TrapLordRoss on Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Come show your boy some love, and I try and reply to everybody that hits me up. Thank you very much to everybody that sent me a nice message. Y'all are legends. Thanks for watching. Peace out.